the other thing that you said that stood out was this notion of, I don't trust men, I don't trust masculinity, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that a lot of men do carry that wound around men or around masculinity. And the challenge becomes...
I did, unconsciously.
100%,
I didn't even know.
100%. But I think the main problem that I think all men need to come into contact with that have that wound is that if you do not trust men fundamentally, if you really get honest with yourself and you're like, actually, I don't trust men, and I don't trust the masculine, well, you're a man. And so what you're really saying is,
Right.
I don't trust me. Fundamentally, I do not trust me. When push comes to shove,
Something wrong with me.
There's something wrong with me. So that man that's carrying that belief, men are bad, men are dangerous, men are this, men only hurt women, there's a rejection of who they naturally are at their core. There's a rejection of what they are at their core. And that rejection will naturally create this kind of dissonance within them. And when you really start to question some of their actions, specifically within relationship, what it will really come down to, and what they'll almost always talk about, is, I don't trust myself. I just don't trust myself. Well, why not? Because I don't like myself. Well, how come? Well, because I don't like who I am as a man, or I don't like who I am as a father, or as a husband, or as a partner, right? Well, how come? And then you just dig a little bit deeper, and what you'll find is, well, I was, my father left me, or I didn't get time with him.
Like a lack of worth.
A lack of worth, right? Or my mom constantly told me how bad men were. She constantly told me, not to be like my father. That's something that a lot of men hear.
So common.
And so what are they doing? They try and construct a personality that is in some ways almost devoid of masculinity,
Like it's like trying to put a compartment again, that compartmentalization. It's like putting it in a box.
Right.
Putting it in the closet and being like, we don't have to worry about that. I'm a really nice guy.
Right. And then they become nice guys, and then they get pissed off at the women in their life for being assertive, for being direct, for having boundaries. They get reactive and needy for not expressing their own wants and needs, because they're operating from this place of, I'm deficient or defective. And I'm saying this all from personal experience, right? So I'm not talking about men in general. I'm actually talking about myself in my past and who I was. I want to make that super clear. So maybe I should just operate from that place. So I would come from that place when I was disliking my own masculinity, didn't trust men because men had hurt me. How I would operate with women in my life was, I'm going to hurt you, and so you shouldn't be around me. And so I would do things to push them away, whether it was acting needy or constantly wanting their validation or sabotaging the relationship or whatever it was. And largely it had nothing to do with them. Some of the relationships weren't right, for sure. Some of them I definitely shouldn't have been in. But for the most part, I didn't know who I was, and I didn't trust who I was. And because I was carrying around this pain of, I was hurt by men and I don't trust men, it was very hard for me to simply settle in to the depth of experience of being a man, of being a man that a woman could trust. It was very uncomfortable to think I can be a man that's trustworthy.
Yeah.
Because all that I knew was men who were harmful or would abandon or were abusive. That's the framework that I had operated from. And so I had to get right with my relationship with men, and I had to heal that, and I had to forgive certain men, and I had to let go of the debt that I thought that they owed me, and I had to reconcile with the pain that I had caused as a man, the hurt that I had passed on to women through infidelities, through lies, through betrayals. That's a lot of work.
That's facing the darkness.
That's facing the darkness. Yeah.
And if you don't excavate that, like if you don't turn towards that and accept it, which isn't saying what you did was okay, because I think that's often confusing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, if I turn towards it and I go, okay, well, I love this part of me, but this part of me has been destructive.
And it's still destructive. Yeah,
right.
It's still destructive.
And if you don't turn towards it, it will still unconsciously steer, because you'll be afraid to touch it all the time. And then it comes out in these weird, fucked up ways. But like, how do we ever... Like, we try to soothe it with porn. We try to soothe it with these other things that, of course, we recognize in the sort of like post-ejaculatory wallowing.
Post-nut clarity.
Right.
Can we talk about clarity? Can we talk about porn? Can we? Because I write about it in the book.
Yeah. I wanted to say, though, that like that's where our partnership, needs us to go, because for the partnership to deepen, we have to confront those things, because what intimacy demands is all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so many men, when their partner, whether same gender or not,
Mm-hmm.
but especially women, when they're like, hey, like, I want to talk about this, or I want to go to therapy, or like, hey, this behavior is destructive,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, the men just like close down, shut down, do whatever. Hey, this is just life. Like, if you don't, you knew what you're getting into, or whatever it is, which I'm sure that happens on the other side. But it's like then their partners leave them.
Yeah.
And then they're like, hey, I'm ready to do the work.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't wait for them, because by the time a person leaves you, a woman leaves you, she's already gone. Generally, not always, but generally.
But I think it's tough, because I think that a lot of, like, I was convinced that the only way change would occur is if I would bottom out. Like, I was convinced, Mark, that the only way change would happen
Like
in
you
my
were
life
planning,
is
like,
I fucking rock bottomed.
I'm gonna rock bottom,
And I think
and then I'll change.
a lot of men have that. A lot of men carry this idea, and they hold this belief in their head that they cannot change until something so monumental happens
Till they
and
have to.
blindsides them, right? So it's kind of, I call it like a pseudo initiation, a forced initiation, where they put themselves into this rock bottom position where things are so bad, where they've blown up their life, where they have to kind of recover from it.